Okay, well, good morning, everyone. 9 o'clock on the dot. Hope you're having a great summer. Thank you for joining us for this morning's town hall. I'm April DeFalco, CTCPA's membership outreach and engagement specialist. The title keeps getting longer. Um, Forget. We have two great speakers with us this morning covering two very different but also very valuable topics. Um, Before we start, I do want to remind you all, just be sure to respond to your pop-up polls that'll appear on your screen. You must respond to those in order to get your CPE credit. All right. So our first speaker this morning, we're going to hear from Richard Boehmcke. He's a board certified health and wellness coach, a certified personal trainer here in Connecticut. Richard spent 20 years in client-facing roles across media and tech startups before shifting his focus to helping professionals build realistic, sustainable habits around sleep, stress, and recovery. Through his practice, Turtle Patience, he's delivered wellness workshops to more than 1,000 participants and works with both individuals and organizations. Following Richard, we'll hear from Dallas Dodge of Roy and Leroy. Dallas will give us an early look at what we can expect in those bills that we need to keep an eye on for the 2027 legislative session. But for now, we're happy to have both of them. And Richard, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome, April. Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen. Let's put this up there. Can I get a thumbs up that that is visible? Beautiful. Awesome. All right. I'm really excited to be talking to everybody today. There's a lot that we're going to cover, but I want to start out by being honest with you. I am, and for some time, have been a productivity addict for almost my entire life. I couldn't stop trying to optimize, trying to improve, trying to make everything better. So, case in point, this really hit its nexus in about 2017. I had New Year's resolutions that weren't New Year's resolutions. My New Year's resolutions were actually, and I'm completely honest about this, a 14 column, 94 row spreadsheet. I was obsessed with self improvement. That is fair to say. So I had more goals, more productivity, more optimization. I thought that if I just worked harder at everything in my life, I'd finally have it together. I did not. A few years after that, my wife got sick. Then the world got COVID. Then my wife and I postponed our wedding twice, our honeymoon three times. I went fully remote and I watched the freedom that I'd been promised kind of slowly turn into a trap. I changed jobs and changed jobs again. Each time I told myself, this one's going to be better. This one is going to be different. Meanwhile, I wasn't sleeping. I was lying awake at night, running through worst case scenarios, mentally rehearsing tomorrow's meetings, calculating how many hours of sleep I would get if I fell asleep right now. I was exhausted during the day. I was wired at night. I was snapping at the people who were closest to me, and I was doing the same thing over and over and wondering why nothing was changing. I was doing the same thing back then that I now help my clients stop doing, treating the symptoms instead of the problems. Something fundamental had to change. Not another resolution, not another spreadsheet, a different way of approaching my own life. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. Hello again. My name is Richard Boehmcke, and as April said, I'm a board certified health and wellness coach. What does that mean? That means I spend all of my time helping people create sustainable habits to improve their stress, their recovery, and everything else that gets squeezed out because you're focused on work. So, before we get into it, I want to hear from you in the chat. What time did you stop working last night? What time did you stop working last night? And what did you do in the first 30 minutes after that? What time did you stop working last night? And what did you do in the first 30 minutes after that? Sharon, first one out the gate, 10:24, very specific because we know, right? We know exactly what time we stop working. 9 p.m., 10:25, 6:30, 4 p.m., 7 o'clock. I am 5:30, 6 o'clock, all across the board, right? All across the board. Then you drove home. What we're going to talk about today are a lot of different strategies and tactics for improving your sleep and improving your stress level. But as we go through today, I want you to just take some notes. Just write down the things that are interesting to you. You don't have to commit to anything. You don't have to say, I'm definitely going to do this. I just want you to write down the things that are interesting. And then at the end, I'm going to ask you to choose one thing that you're going to start this week, not a goal, not an intention, one specific behavior that you're going to implement. I'm going to pop a couple handouts in the chat now. These are on a Google Drive. You can easily just grab these, click on the download option, and then from there, you'll be able to actually keep these for yourself and use them however you like. They're going in the chat right now. Perfect. All right. So what are we actually going to talk about today? So we're going to break this down into a couple different areas. We're going to talk about why you can't shut down. We're going to talk about the gap that nobody really talks about. And we're going to talk about actually building your off switch, what that actually looks like. Now, if we're talking about y'all today, I'm going to tell you what I know about you. September 15th, October 15th, November 15th. These aren't just dates, right? These are drum beats that your nervous system runs on. The workload doesn't stop, the deadlines stack, and in between, somebody maybe adds a new regulation, a new technology requirement, maybe a new client emergency. Clients haven't yet learned yet that they should stop having emergencies. But what does this all mean, right? What is the cost of this? What's actually happening to you? So, a 2024 University of Georgia and Flowcast study found that 99% of accountants experience exhaustion, feelings of inefficiency, and alienation from their job at some point in their career. Those three things, exhaustion, inefficiency, alienation, that's the textbook definition of burnout. 99% of accountants. And accountants are 36% more likely to report feeling stressed or burned out than people in other industries. This isn't a presentation about telling you to work less. That's not realistic. I understand that. I'm here to help you get more out of the hours you're not working. So the hours that you are working don't destroy you. But what's actually happening? What is it actually doing to you? Well, from a 2024 ResMed study, we know that 38% of US workers experience fatigue on the job. And that's not just being tired. That's negatively impacting your performance. And 62% of the global population doesn't get the recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Most of the people I talk to barely get the 6 hours that they're striving for. And the people who prioritize rest are getting 30% more productivity out of their day, 30% more creativity. And in accounting, your end product is the quality of your thinking. That's the product that you have, the quality of your problem solving. If we think about this from a different angle, the top three things people experience after a night of good sleep are improved concentration, improved productivity, and improved mental health. Those aren't wellness stats, those are performance stats. And here's the myth I want you to let go of: the more I work, the more I will accomplish. And I know that one's hard to shake, especially in a profession where hours worked is a source of pride and staying late signals commitment. I know I worked for 4 different tech startups, and it was this game of chicken, looking around like who's going to leave first? Who's going to leave first? Who's going to admit they don't have enough work or they're not working hard enough? But the data very clearly says the opposite. Overworking increases stress and reduces focus, which ultimately harms productivity. That leads to burnout, decreased output, and critically for CPAs, errors. I always like to go back to LeBron James, who we know is a pretty good basketball player. But he will sometimes sleep for 10 or even 12 hours a day, including the naps that he works in. Now, that's not possible for everybody. I know that. But if the greatest athlete of his generation treats recovery as a non negotiable, it's worth asking what that means for the way that you've been treating your recovery. I'm exhausted, but I can't shut off. Let me know if that sounds familiar. That's tired but wired. That's not a character flaw. It's a physiological state. Your body has been running on cortisol and adrenaline all day. Deadline pressure, back-to-back calls, context switching between clients and problems. You barely leave your chair. By the time you walk away from your desk, your nervous system doesn't know the emergency is over. It's still scanning for threats. And by the way, sleep and stress are a two-way system. Ongoing poor sleep can disrupt cortisol's natural daily rhythm. leaving your body more activated when it needs to wind down. Your body doesn't necessarily know when it needs to wind down. You can't just say body wind down and it goes, oh, okay. You need to train your body to do that. And over time, that stressed out pattern is associated with impaired mood, impaired concentration, increased inflammation, less healthy glucose and metabolic regulation. So you lie down at night, you're physically depleted, but your mind is still running the tape, replaying the meeting, preloading tomorrow's problems, calculating how many hours of sleep you'll get if you fall asleep right now. You know what that feels like. You slept last night, but it didn't restore you. Your sleep was fragmented or you were up multiple times. You fall asleep immediately and then wake up 2 hours later. Or you're just irritable throughout the day and you're struggling to manage your stress. And this is why this matters so much. We know that sleep deprived people have an amygdala, and that's the brain's threat detection center. We know that sleep deprived people have an amygdala that is 70% more reactive to emotional stimuli. More reactive means more impulsive, more irritable, more compromised in judgment and decision making. In a profession where your judgment is the product, that's not a small thing. And you can't just sleep your way out of this by going to bed earlier. The problem starts earlier in the day. Your sleep preparation starts the moment you wake up. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next two sections. But first, here's one of my favorite statements. I'll catch up on sleep over the weekend. How's that working out for you? Because I hear that constantly. I want to be honest with y'all. You can't. Weakened sleep may reduce some short-term fatigue, but it does not restore full cognitive function, emotional regulation, or physical health. It doesn't offset the compounding effect of chronic sleep deprivation. Consistently missing sleep increases your risk of metabolic disorders, cardiovascular disease, and mental health issues. And irregular sleep patterns, going to bed at different times each night, make your body's circadian system work against you instead of with you. Stop thinking about catching up on sleep. Start thinking about today. What can you change in the next 24 hours? Your body craves consistency. It wants consistency in when you eat, and when you sleep, when you hydrate, all things consistency. But here's something that we aren't really talking about right now. Your bedtime doesn't start when you get in bed. It starts hours before. The absence of work is not the same as rest. Let me say that again. The absence of work is not the same as rest. Most of us treat sleep as an on-off switch. We work until we physically can't anymore, then we expect to flip a switch and recover. But your nervous system doesn't work that way. It has a ramp, not a switch. It has a ramp, not a switch. The problem isn't the sleep itself, it's the transition into it. And most of us have zero transition. We go from screen to bed, from deadline to pillow, from inbox to unconsciousness. And then we wonder why we're not rested. Actually, I want to ask you a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, one being super easy and two being impossible, how hard is it for you to genuinely rest and switch off at the end of the day? On a scale of 1 to 10, one being really easy, 10 being impossible, how hard is it for you to genuinely rest and switch off at the end of the day? Just let me know in the chat. One being easy, 10 being impossible. How easy is it for you to switch off at the end of the day? Yeah. 6, 5, 7, 8, depending on the day, 5 to 8, 7, 3, 5. I venture to say that we're averaging in the harder range here, team. It's hard to switch off. And that's why this transition is really important. When you try to stop and your brain won't cooperate, that's not weakness. It's your nervous system doing what it's been trained to do. Millions of years of evolution training your body to do something. You've spent months or years or decades, maybe, conditioning your body to stay on high alert. That's adaptive. It helps you get through busy season, but your body doesn't know when busy season ends. You have to train it. And a lot of the barriers I hear constantly is guilt. I should be doing, you know what? I should be doing something more productive. There's no time. I have to keep working, or just poor sleep. I never sleep well. Overcommitment. I feel bad saying no. I still have my parents I have to take care of, my kids I have to take care of. There's other obligations. We're addicted to our phones. We're trying to get our phones to be less addictive for us, which is kind of like asking your drug dealer to sell you healthier drugs. We have a lack of clear boundaries and just constant pressure. The cultural pressure, especially in accounting, business status. And that last one matters. I've been billing 60-hour weeks. I've been crushing it. That's a badge of honor. Taking care of yourself can feel like a confession of weakness. Wellness can feel like something that you do at some hippy dippy crystal yurt in Sedona. But I want to offer you a different frame. Building a recovery practice is a performance strategy, not a retreat from ambition. One of the things that I want to jump to is really start to talk about what a wind down routine actually is. It is not another form of productivity or optimization. It's not scrolling social media. Your phone has nothing to do with you calming down. It's not watching something on a screen that spikes your heart rate or keeps you problem solving or helps you zone out. It's not anything that keeps that threat system active. A wind down routine is intentional. You decided to do it, not drifted into it. It's a signal to your nervous system that the day is over. It's a transition, not a hard stop. It's a boundary between work mode and recovery mode. And there's three sections in the way I want you to think about this. You close the day, you slow the body, you quiet the mind. Closing the day means actually finishing your thoughts. Write down tomorrow's top 3 tasks or top 3 objectives. Do a 2-minute brain dump. Just write down everything you're thinking about. And then reflect journal, what went well? What am I still worried about? What's asking for my attention? And then later on, you'll slow the body. Do some gentle stretching, some maybe a warm shower or a bath, some 4-7-8 breathing, which I'm going to train you to do in just a few minutes. And then you quiet the mind. What is your mindfulness practice? What does that look like? What analog practice will you come up with? Notice what went well in your day. We're awesome at noticing everything that went terribly. Maybe some sort of a guided meditation or breath work. And one of the most underused tools here is the brain dump. And I say this with somebody whose brain is like a jukebox that just starts playing as soon as I wake up in the morning. Your brain is holding a running list of everything you need to do, everyone you need to respond to, everything you're worried about. And as long as it's holding all of that, it can't relax. Your brain goes into what psychologists call a rehearsal loop. So it's constantly reviewing the same items over and over again, afraid that you'll forget. Writing it down changes all that. It tells your brain, hey, chill. These things are handled. They're written down. They're on paper. I won't forget them. And now your brain can relax and it can release. So I want to teach you how to actually calm your nervous system down. I'm going to teach you something called 4-7-8 breathing. This might be something you've done before or something you've learned, but this is a tactic that actually calms your nervous system. It's a 4-second inhale through the nose, a 7-second hold, and then an 8-second exhale. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale through your mouth for 8. That longer exhale is prolonging your exhale, is actually activating your rest and digest nervous system. So when we inhale for longer than we exhale, we're jacking up our nervous system. We're getting ourselves amped up. We want to do the opposite. So I'm going to invite you to follow along here as long as you're not operating heavy machinery or standing up, sit down. Let your body just chill for a second. Let your hands sit in your lap or on your knees and let your eyes fall gently closed. And just check in with yourself for a second. Notice how your body's feeling. And I'm going to count this off for you. So I'll tell you to inhale, I'll tell you to hold, I'll tell you to exhale. So let's inhale through the nose now. Hold. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Hold. Exhale through the mouth. Gently return to your natural breath. Open your eyes. How do you feel? Let me know in the chat. How does your body feel? What's different? How do you feel now versus how you felt 57 seconds ago? Calmer, more relaxed, more at ease, relaxed. I love it. 57 seconds. 57 seconds. You now know that you can calm your nervous system in 57 seconds. You can do that before a big meeting, during a big meeting, after a stressful event, before a hard conversation, and most importantly, before you fall asleep at night. 3 rounds takes 57 seconds, but you can do it for 6 or 9 or 12 or 20. If I need to fall asleep, I do that until I just notice I'm not doing it anymore, at which point I'm asleep. It is the simplest thing you can do to calm your nervous system. It's the closest thing to magic that we have. So now that you're already feeling calmer, let's talk about what your environment should look like. Light, sound, temperature, and your phone. These are the things that are working against you. Yes, I know you've been sold blue light glasses and told that blue light is the enemy of all things, but science shows that you're absorbing more blue light from the sun than you are from your phone. So, what is it that's actually happening? It's not the blue light from your phone, it's the fact that you're looking at stimulating things on your phone. And yes, they emit blue light as well too. But that doesn't mean that you should just go all in on blue light. You want to dim your lights, start to set the scene. Start to put your phone, your computer, all the screens in your home into night mode. 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Now, when it comes to sound, when you're going to bed, your body is looking for things to be worried about. It wants consistent sounds. We want a noise machine, an air conditioner, an air purifier, something that's going to keep a very steady sound that's going to prevent those things from poking through. Temperature, we want a nice cold temperature to help your body calm down. And any of my uh, attendees today who are in that perimenopause or menopause phase, you know your body does not know what temperature it is or what temperature it should be. So that's why that cold temperature is really important. And your phone is a cortisol machine. Every notification is a hit of cortisol. Every scroll is a decision that you have to make, a decision you have to act on. Your phone being in the room is enough to cause low levels of stress. Studies show that even seeing your phone out of your peripheral causes low level anxiety. If you want to make a change in your life, start by putting your phone across the room. If you want to go crazy, take your phone out of your bedroom. I know, I'm offering some crazy solutions today here, team. But start with getting it out of arm's reach. It's the hardest thing to do, and it's the one with the biggest impact. But now I want you to audit what your wind down should look like. And just do this for yourself. Answer these 3 questions. When was the last time you felt truly rested? What's happening right now in the 60 minutes before bed? And what's one thing you suspect is not helping? This might be hard for some of you. When's the last time you felt truly rested? What's happening in that 60 minutes before bed? Do you even know? Noticing is the first step to change. When I coach people one-to-one, we'll work together for 8 to 12 weeks, sometimes months. But the first step is always just noticing because we don't notice, right? We've adapted to just move, to go. When we start to notice, it gets really hard to ignore. And then it becomes a lot easier to make change. When was the last time you felt truly rested? What's happening in the hour before bed? And what's one thing you suspect isn't helping? You're not judging yourself, you're just evaluating. So I want to help you change this. I want you to build your off switch. And it's really starting with a routine. Here's what most people try to do. I'm going to build a bedtime routine. I'm going to build the most elaborate, comprehensive, impossible to reach bedtime routine, implement it for 2 nights, fail, and then give up entirely. Now you become really good at quitting a bedtime routine. And by the way, this isn't a motivation or an inspiration problem. Motivation and inspiration are hot fuels that burn fast. The solution isn't a better, more optimized routine, it's a tiered system. What we want is a tiered system. In accounting, you understand contingency planning. You plan for different scenarios. Your wind down routine should work the exact same way. Not one perfect version that you nail or abandon, three versions. One for when you have all the time, one for when you don't really have that much time, and one for when you have absolutely no time at all. So, what does this look like? Well, here's an example. And I'm not saying this is prescriptive to you, but here's one that could work for you. Full routine, maybe you got a full hour. Great. I'm going to do a brain dump. I'm going to write down everything I'm worried about. I'm going to put my devices away an hour before bed. I'm going to read a real book, not a phone, not a laptop, not a tablet, not a Kindle, nothing with a light. I'm going to take a warm shower. I'm going to do some gentle stretching. But actually, I've only got about 10 minutes tonight. So maybe I'm going to stretch for a few minutes. I'm going to write down tomorrow's top priorities so I stop thinking about them. I'm going to write down my worries. I'm going to throw my phone out of the bedroom. I'm going to put my white noise machine on. Or you know what? I'm tip to tail today from beginning to end. And all I have time to do is lower the lights, put my phone away, and just breathe for 57 seconds. Three tiers. You need all three. Each one is valuable at different times in your life. Your 4-7-8 breathing, that's your floor, that's your baseline. And this is one of the most practical things I'm going to give you today. Most people have set a wake up alarm. Most people have not set a bedtime alarm or a wind down alarm. 30 to 60 minutes, however long you want to start, name it shutdown, name it start. But when it goes off, you stop what you're doing. You put your phone down, you put your work away, you dim the lights, you start your routine. Whatever tier fits for tonight. Your brain will push back. But I'm in the middle of something. I gotta finish this one thing. You know where that road leads. You never really finish, do you? Does anybody here have an empty inbox? You need to override that instinct to push through. The alarm exists because your judgment about when to stop is compromised by the same exhaustion you're trying to fix. Try it for a week. Notice what's different, what works, what's hard, what's challenging. And you're going to have a bad night. It's not a matter of if, it's when. We know this. We are ready for this. But you need to plan for those bad nights. Here's the thing you want to remember. Consistency is the lever here. Going to bed at a consistent time matters as much, sometimes more, than the total hours you sleep. Your circadian rhythm is a system. It thrives on patterns. Give it a pattern it can stick to. That doesn't mean rigid. It doesn't mean I can't go out with my friends tonight because my bedtime is 9:30. It means anchored. Pick a target bedtime and a target wake time. Stick to them within 30 minutes. Even on weekends, your body will start working with you instead of against you. And when you have a bed night, which you will, just get back on track the next day. Get up at your normal time. Get your daylight exposure early, not through a window, but outside where the sun lives. Use caffeine early and moderately, but don't start hitting the snooze. Don't rely on alcohol to fall asleep or caffeine late in the afternoon or overwork to push through. One bad night doesn't erase the pattern you're building. It's just an opportunity to learn. Stay consistent. Your body will learn to regulate. So, what are the big takeaways for today, team? Sleep starts before your head hits the pillow. We know that, okay? Tonight's good sleep starts right when you wake up. Tired but wired isn't a personality trait. It's a psychological state that you've been thrust into. You don't need a perfect routine. You need a tiered system that works on your worst nights. And one consistent action beats an ambitious plan that you abandon. I promise you, the people that I coach one-to-one who create successful routines for their life go slow and start small. If you want this routine to fail, do everything at the same time. Try everything at once. Okay, now I want to hear from you in the chat. Three quick things. What's the one thing you're committing to this week? What's one obstacle that's going to get in the way? And what are you going to do when it arises? What's one thing you're committing to this week? What's one obstacle that might get in the way? What are you going to do when it arises? And last but not least, before I get to questions, if this has been helpful for you, if it resonated, there's two things I would love. I would love to talk to your company. I talk to companies every week, somewhere between 7 and 8 times a week. I talk about stress, sleep, nutrition, tech addiction, all of these different things, because nobody has taught you how to relax. Nobody has taught you how to eat. Nobody has taught you how to breathe. And the opportunity to do that is rare. And if this is something that you're really struggling with, I'd love to work with you directly. Schedule time with me, 25 minutes, doesn't cost you anything. Be happy to chat with you. And anybody who signs up with me, I'll throw in 3 extra sessions on top of the 8 that we normally do. If you want to get in contact with me, there's my information. I'll leave it up, but I'll open it to questions right now. And April, you tell me how much time I have for questions. I think I went a little long. So if we don't have time, let me know.
No, we're good on time. So
All right.
please, questions, we're good.
And I'm just scanning through the chat here to see if there's any questions that I missed from anybody. Let's see here. Do you recommend journaling? Yeah, Brian, I love journaling for it. I teach reflective journaling classes, and people are like, well, what should I write? It's just what's in your head. Think about your brain as a tank, and you're just trying to get everything out. And so a lot of times my journaling will be when I'm doing a brain dump is, oh, we have to pay this bill, and we just moved, and we haven't met anybody new yet. And what's Brad Pitt doing right now? And is cheese that bad for you? Like things just come out, right? That's the goal is not to limit or corral. The goal is just to get everything out. Your brain has these thoughts that it wants to hang on to because it's afraid you're going to forget. But you have to tell your brain it's okay to release. Exercise recommendations, Johanna, absolutely. So beginning of the day, we want to get our body going. End of the day, we want to start to move slowly into relaxation. So we're talking about slow, gentle stretches. So moving through poses where you're holding those poses for 10 to 30 seconds. And if you're not very flexible, that's fine. Find a routine that you can do. Just start to calm your body down. When you stretch your body, when you open your body up, it helps your body relax. It helps activate that parasympathetic nervous system. So we're looking for things that are calming, for things that are slow, for things that don't cause stress or pain or agitation. Writing down writing down the top three obstacle would be 5 p.m. Oh, okay. This is your Roxanne. Love it. Writing down your top three obstacle would be 5 p.m. rushing in and not realizing it is time to go and not writing it down. Maybe I'll do an end of workday alarm so I make sure I get up for the next day. Roxanne, love it. Love it. Already putting something into play. Your shutdown routine is powerful. And by the way, if you're laying in bed and you're like, oh man, I did my shutdown routine, but I have something else I didn't add to my shutdown routine, get out of bed, add it to your shutdown routine, add it to your worry list, add it to your journal, and then close it again. A computer scientist I really like named Cal Newport always says he has a little phrase he says at the end, like shutdown complete, whatever you want to say, huzzah, whoopee, whatever it is that's going to make you feel good. But say something that lets you know, all right, this has been completed. My shutdown routine ties out, or whatever it's going to be. But when you're done and you remember something later, just go back, reopen it, close it out, because your brain's going to say, oh, I need to worry about this thing. All right, I don't see any other questions. Last call. I think we'll call it April.
Great. Wow, this was great. Richard, thank you so much. Um, I know I'm going to go home tonight and practice. I have to say that breathing was a little more difficult than I thought. I think we're always so, well, reactive almost, that we're always breathing that stressful breath, that just ready to take off at any second. So it'll be interesting to practice.
Yeah. And we always
Thank
breathe
you.
shallowly. We always breathe up here, right?
Yeah.
Breathe through our
Yeah.
shoulders, but you want to breathe through your belly. You want to keep your shoulders down. If you don't know how to breathe, it's okay. Nobody taught you, but it's not too late to learn.
Thank you so much. Great presentation. All right, everyone. Next, we have Dallas Dodge with Roy and Leroy. He's going to talk to us about kind of give us an early look at what the session, what to expect, and maybe those bills that we need to keep an eye on for January, right? session starts? Or,
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
right.
well, it's January this year. Thanks for excuse me. Thank you for the introduction. And I think most people have probably heard me speak before. My name is Dallas Dodge. I'm the managing partner of Roy and Leroy Government Relations, and we are the contract lobbyists for the CPAs at the state capitol. And so, your eyes and your ears and your advocates in the hallways of Hartford. As always, it's a true pleasure representing the CPAs, on a professional level. You guys are always tremendously responsive and helpful in terms of providing us with information as we deal with your issues at the Capitol. And so we really appreciate that collaboration and the way that Bonnie is able to tap into the membership when we need people to testify, when we need information, when we need resources to be able to represent your interests at the Capitol. It's a little soon to be talking about individual bills for the next session. As April said at the beginning, this is going to be a new General Assembly starting in January, which means that it's a long session. So that'll be the beginning of the biennial state budget. The session runs from January to June next year. The way the General Assembly works is in odd years, it's a long session where they write the state budget, also tend to take on meatier issues. And then in the even numbered years, it's a short session, which only runs from February to May. And they tend to have a much more truncated calendar then. And they're not writing a new biennial state budget. They're simply making budget adjustments to the budget that they adopted the year before. What I want to talk about first, though, is just some of the political dynamics, especially with what was probably one of the busier primary seasons that we've had in recent memory, and how some of those changes are going to impact life at the state capitol and even in Washington, D.C. So I'm sure everybody was probably paying attention to Connecticut had one of the first competitive primaries for an incumbent congressman in generations this year. Former Hartford Mayor Luke Bronin challenged John Larson for the first congressional district and beat him fairly handedly. Given the makeup of that district at this point, we fully expect that Luke will, in all likelihood, win the general election. It's become a very, very blue seat, and so effectively the primary was the general election. The interesting thing about that race was that number one, I don't think anybody expected Luke's margin to be as big as it was. But it was interesting that, in terms of policy, there was really no difference between him and Congressman Larson. He really ran on this idea of generational change, which is something that I think you're starting to see across the country, that it was time to just simply for Representative Larson's generation to pass the torch. And I was surprised by how much that really resonated in the first congressional district. So we'll have a new face in that seat. In terms of policy, they'll probably be very similar in terms of what they're advocating for. But that was really a sea change in terms of Connecticut politics. Probably going to make a few of the other sitting members of Congress a little bit wary going into the future, because I think incumbency can breed complacency sometimes. And what demonstrated is that somebody who's got a good organization, who's motivated, who can raise money, can certainly challenge a sitting congressman or state senator. The other big primary that we were watching was the one for governor. Um, there was no primary on the Republican side. Ryan Fazio who's a sitting state senator from Greenwich, was originally going to, in all likelihood, face former New Britain Mayor Aaron Stewart for the Republican nomination. But as you probably read in the paper, Mayor Stewart ran into some legal trouble at the end of the nominating convention process and ended up bowing out of that race. And so Ryan was uncontested for the Republican nomination. On the Democratic side, though, we had the first Democrat or incumbent governor to be challenged, I think, in the last 30 years. Governor Lamont was challenged by State Representative Josh Elliott. Unlike the Larson-Bronin race, where there were really no policy differences between the two, um, Representative Elliott ran at Governor Lamont from the far left progressive flank of the party. He was advocating things like a millionaire's tax, also some really more extreme progressive issues. Nobody ever really expected the race to be close, and it wasn't. I think Governor Lamont won with about 67% of the vote. And so going into the general election head to head with Senator Fazio, again, all indications are that Governor Lamont is in all likelihood the prohibitive favorite to win the general election right now. Connecticut remains a deep blue state, and Governor Lamont is also helped by the fact that he still has tremendously high favorability ratings among the general public, especially with not just Democrats, but also independents, and some of that even crosses party lines into Republicans. And so, again, Governor Lamont is the prohibitive favorite. He will be the first governor since John Rowland to serve 3 terms if he wins another election. He has said that this will be his last term in office, and so the other dynamic that sets up is, I don't think it's fair to say that it'll be a lame duck on day one. However, the race to replace him will start very quickly after that, where you'll have a number of Connecticut's current state constitutional officers starting to think about whether they're going to run for governor in 2030. In terms of the House and the Senate, no major high profile primaries that happened, although there were a lot of them, but nothing that's really going to impact significantly or in a significant way the leadership of the General Assembly. There were a few incumbents who did get knocked off. And again, I think that goes towards some of that generational change that we've been seeing. But I think in most cases where the incumbents lost, they had either some personal issues that were impacting their race, or, in some cases just had good challengers. So I don't think there's too much to read into any of those changes. The more fascinating dynamic will be just the overall makeup of the General Assembly. So currently, the Democrats enjoy super majorities in both the House and the Senate. And those are technically veto-proof majorities if they were able to get all of their caucuses in alignment. And we actually expect those super majorities to grow in the next election cycle. The reason for that is twofold. Number one, the party in power in Washington typically does not fare well in midterm elections. And all indications are that this is going to be a blue wave election across the United States, and Connecticut's not going to be immune to that. The other thing is that there's a sort of shocking number of seats that Republicans aren't even challenging in the General Assembly and not putting candidates up. I think there's 7 Senate seats that the Republicans are not challenging the Democrats for, and 37 seats in the House. And so you combine those two dynamics together, and all indications are that we're going to have a very, very deep blue General Assembly. It's going to create an interesting tug and pull with the governor, because he really has governed as a moderate. He's been very committed to Connecticut's fiscal guardrails and keeping us on track in terms of no tax increases and staying within our means in terms of spending. But you're going to have a Democratic supermajority that's very eager to, I think, not necessarily raise new revenue. We don't really have a revenue problem right now, but to spend a lot more of the money that we've been putting into the rainy day fund and paying down pension debt. So it'll probably be a challenging session for the governor in that sense, where I think he will be in a more moderate position fiscally than the General Assembly that he's dealing with. And one of the problems there too is, as I mentioned earlier, you come in for a third term where it's clear that you're not running again. Um, you're kind of a lame duck to begin with. You're going to have other Democrats who are posturing to start running for governor in 4 years. And so it's going to make it a very, very unique dynamic, something that we haven't seen in the last 8 years. In terms of sort of the big issues that we're going to be dealing with at the Capitol, there's two that I want to focus on, and the first is what I talked about earlier, which is the fiscal guardrails. So Connecticut for years was in a state of what one former OPM director eloquently called a state of permanent fiscal crisis. Connecticut for 30 to 40 years had grossly underfunded its pension liability, in some years not even making any contribution, let alone the ADEC contribution to the pension fund, and that liability was growing and growing and growing. In 2017, when we had an evenly divided Senate between Republicans and Democrats, we adopted a series of fiscal guardrails, which contractually tied the legislature's hands in terms of how much it could spend and how volatile revenue would be used when it came in the door. So basically, any revenue that's volatile, which is a lot of the sales tax, a certain amount of income tax, automatically now goes to paying to either the rainy day fund or paying down pension debt. And Governor Lamont's been very committed to those. A lot of the Democrats in the General Assembly are frustrated with how much that ties their hands in terms of spending. And so I think there's going to be a huge appetite this year for continuing to erode the fiscal guardrails and give the General Assembly a little bit more, or maybe not a little bit more, but a lot more flexibility to spend some of the excess revenue that we have coming in. Um, the other major issue that we anticipate continuing, and this is really due to a leadership change that we'll have in the state Senate. No leadership changes in the House. We expect House Speaker Matt Ritter to return to that leadership role. He's running for an unprecedented fourth term as Speaker of the House. And Jason Rojas will likely be back as Majority Leader. But in the Senate, we did have a sea change in terms of leadership this year, where Marty Looney, who's the sitting state Senate president, announced his retirement after 15 years in that role and serving more than 30 years in the General Assembly. All indications are right now that Senator Bob Duff from Norwalk, who is the current majority leader, has the votes to become the next Senate president. And Senator Gary Winfield will become the next Senate majority leader, and he's from New Haven. Senator Duff, in terms of his policy priorities, has been really focused over the last few years, on data privacy and AI regulation. Connecticut was one of the first states to adopt comprehensive data privacy reforms. And last year, it became one of the first, if not the first, depending on how you look at different regulations that states have adopted to adopt comprehensive AI regulations. Now, a lot of the AI regulations that were adopted are not particularly onerous. They're more requirements in terms of transparency. There were some restrictions put in place that I think are common sense restrictions in terms of how chatbots and that type of thing can interact with humans. But the one that's probably the most impactful to the CPAs, particularly as business owners and your clients, are the regulations that they put in place around automated employment decisions. And so those are situations where you have AI being used to screen candidates or make decisions about or make other employment decisions. Originally, in the original version of the AI bill, those restrictions were a lot more onerous and prescriptive in terms of the impact of businesses. At the end of the day, though, they were watered down to really be more transparency requirements. So now, if you're using AI for an automated employment decision, you need to disclose to the prospective employee that AI is being used to make decisions. In the original version of the bill, the more onerous requirements that I talked about were after AI was used to make an employment decision, you would actually have to give a candidate an opportunity to effectively challenge whatever the AI information was that was used to make that employment decision. I think there's going to be a huge appetite in the upcoming session to revisit that issue and try and put some of those restrictions that they were originally contemplating for automated employment decisions back into place. The other sort of different policy direction too will be with Senator Winfield as the majority leader. He has been a huge criminal justice reform advocate. One of the issues that he's taken on in the past is the degree to which you can use background checks and that type of stuff in employment contexts, and also civil rights issues in terms of like extending statutes of limitations and that sort of thing. So those are a few of the sort of big ticket items that we'll be dealing with next session. In terms of nuts and bolts tax issues, again, you'll have some Democrats, as always, who are advocating to increase taxes, especially on high net worth earners. But I think that because the state's revenue stream is so strong right now, there's probably not going to be a lot of will at the end of the day to do too much in terms of tax increases or stuff like that. A few priorities that we've worked on in the past for you that we'll be working on again is fixing the amortization schedule for bond revenue and that sort of thing. And then I'm sure there'll be any number of other issues that come up again. But that's kind of big picture, April, what we're looking at for the 2027 General Assembly. And I'm happy to take any questions and am always available too if anybody ever has any questions after the presentation ends. If you ever want to bounce anything off of us, please feel free.
Thank you, Dallas. Very informative. Does anyone have any questions? Can either use your chat, raise your hand, or just speak. Wow, the first. You're very thorough, Dallas.
Thank you,
Great
April.
job. Thank you so much. Oh, oh, thank you.
I
So
think I just
folks
got clapped, not a
enjoyed.
raised hand.
Yes, yes. So thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being here. I did put some information in the chat. Um, and I believe we'll send out an email to all of you who attended, just with some updates, some links on both Richard and Dallas's presentation. But also check out the chat. We are launching CTCPA's new Catalyst series, which is similar to the ABCs. If any of you had attended an ABC event, great networking, food, beverages. But this is going to include some really hot topics that are going to be interactive. First one is AI. I mean, it's all we're hearing about. You definitely want to attend this because you're going to actually work through real life scenarios with others. You'll be kind of broken up into little groups and we'll work on some scenarios. So it'll be a great learning experience too. The link is there to register. Also, nominations close next Friday, the 28th, for Women's Awards nominees. So please, if you know someone you'd like to nominate, click the link there. And then we also have some room for companies for interview day. So if you'd like to participate in that, you're either hiring or looking for interns or hiring, click the link and save your spot there. So we really appreciate you all coming, especially with it being summer. So many of you here. Thank you so much. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Dallas. And have a great month, and we'll see you in September. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.